Is now in order to consider H.R. 3173, Northern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act of 2023. Without objection, the Subcommittee on Federal Lands is discharged from further consideration of the bill. Without objection, the bill will be considered as read and open to amendment at any point. Does any member wish to be recognized for purpose of debate on the bill? I recognize myself for 5 minutes. I speak in support of H.R. 3173, the Northern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act, sponsored by Representative Amodei. This bill comprehensively addresses public lands issues in 6 northern Nevada counties to support economic revitalization, conservation, and outdoor recreation. Over 80% of Nevada is federally owned, more than any other state in the nation. The federal government owns a whopping 56.3 million acres in Nevada, an area larger than the entire state of Kansas. Surrounded by federal property, rural Nevada communities often struggle to generate economic activity and provide for their well-being. Since federal lands are not taxable, Nevada's state and local governments are deprived of a key funding source for public services such as law enforcement, waste disposal, and emergency response services. An excessive federal footprint also creates a large and diverse group of stakeholders whose opinions on how to best manage our lands often sharply diverge. Representative Amodei's bill has risen to the challenges presented, offering a thoughtful proposal that would meaningfully improve the lives of his constituents. Importantly, this bill directly removes or authorizes the sale of approximately 215,000 acres from the federal estate to create new job opportunities for Nevada's residents while allowing local entities the ability to manage land for conservation and recreation. Proposed uses of this unlocked land include flood control, mineral development, state park expansions, residential development, water infrastructure improvements, and new outdoor recreation facilities. Returning these parcels to local control will better align their future uses with the goals, values, and desires of northern Nevadans. Take Douglas County, for example, which has less than 50,000 residents. Under this legislation, they will receive a parcel of underutilized U.S. Forest Service land where they plan to build a campground and day use area, attracting more visitors and providing new recreation experiences to locals. The growing town of Sparks, Nevada will be able to acquire land to be used as a regional public park and outdoor space. The legislation before us strikes the appropriate balance between conservation and economic development. The bill not only conveys 26,000 acres out of the federal estate specifically for economic development, but also 10,000 acres for conservation efforts. Those who say this bill is imbalanced rely on the faulty notion prevalent in the Beltway bubble that the only way to conserve land is to make it federal. This bill actively promotes conservation by empowering state and local governments in Nevada to conserve and manage lands that the federal government otherwise fails to manage. Since the Federal Lands Subcommittee heard this bill in March, Representative Amodei's office has worked diligently with the committee to gather feedback from both the Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management. Several provisions were dropped from the bill that the agencies opposed. The bill before us today reflects the best compromise achievable after conversations on both sides of the aisle. It provides the bill with the best path forward for consideration in this committee and through the legislative process. In working through these compromises, Representative Amodei has proven himself to be a fierce advocate for the residents of northern Nevada. He has invested in fully knowing the cities, counties, and communities he represents and has worked directly with them to address their needs. And having visited northern Nevada with Representative Amodei, I know how important this legislation is and how hard he's worked to try to find a bipartisan solution. The comprehensive bill results from his conversations, negotiations, and agreements at the local level with the committee and agency staff. I commend Representative Amodei again for his leadership in these efforts. I urge my colleagues to support the legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time. Is there further discussion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman?
Ranking Member Grijalva, you're recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that Representative Amodei has put into this legislation. It's a sweeping attempt to resolve many long-standing public land management issues in Nevada. I understand. Arizona is also a public land state. We too face the challenges of managing our lands in ways that resolve conflicts, consolidate ownership, and promote economic development. As as introduced, this legislation was in a real serious attempt to balance these priorities while promoting land conservation and tribal sovereignty. Unfortunately, I understand that as chair, you plan to offer an ANS that undermines this, this important balance. The ANS removes all federal conservation designations from the original bill. That means that no new protections for the Ruby Mountains despite broad support for permanent protection. It also means no new wilderness in the Pershing County, even though over 100,000 acres will leave federal ownership under this bill, some sold directly to mining companies. Plus, Republicans did not share the new bill's text with Democrats until after 9 p.m. on Friday. So there may be additional issues we haven't found yet. This rush process erodes trust, but that's where things are. Now, I do want to recognize that the ANS also updates many map references that incorporates some of the BLM's technical feedback. While I welcome these changes, it doesn't make up for the lack of balance. Nevada has a long history threading the needle in the public lands management, promoting economic development while protecting our environment and scenic landscapes. The introduced bill comes close to striking that balance. The ANS doesn't even try. I oppose the bill and regret the missed opportunity for bipartisan collaboration. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the bill? Hearing none, it is now in order to consider amendments to H.R. 3173. I recognize myself for the purpose of offering my amendment in the nature of a substitute designated Westerman ANS 02. Without objection, the amendment is considered as read and open to amendment at any point. I speak in support of my ANS to H.R. 3173, the Northern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act, sponsored by Representative Amodei. The ANS makes several technical and substantive changes to the legislation. First, the ANS incorporates significant technical assistance from the Department of the Interior, Bureau of Land Management, and U.S. Forest Service. Over the past several months, this committee has worked with the agencies to improve the bill by incorporating extensive technical edits and creating new maps for the bill. Second, the ANS removes a mineral withdrawal, wilderness designations, and wilderness study area releases from the underlying bill. The introduced version of this legislation featured wilderness designations and mineral withdrawals that were not fully balanced with acreage otherwise relinquished from federal ownership elsewhere in the bill. Removing restrictive land use designations brings the legislation back to its guiding spirit and original motivation, allowing Nevadans to have greater control over their lands to improve economic, recreation, and conservation opportunities at a local level. Drafting legislation that addresses conveyances of federal land requires tough decision-making. The product before us today results from Representative Amodei's strong determination to resolve some of the most complex land management challenges confronting communities in his district. I urge my colleagues to support the ANS and the underlying legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time. Is there further discussion on the ANS? If there's no further discussion on the ANS, it is now in order to consider amendments to the ANS. I recognize the gentlewoman from Nevada, Ms. Lee, for the purpose of offering an amendment designated Lee 087. Without objection, the amendment is considered as read.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for accommodating me this morning. First and foremost, I want to extend my appreciation to you and your staff, as well as to Congressman Amodei and his staff for working with me in my office on this amendment. The Southern Nevada Correctional Center, known as the Jean Prison, is located within my district and closed nearly a decade ago. The Jean Prison is approximately 574 acres in total, 94 of which the state of Nevada owns in fee title. The remaining 480 acres were patented to the state by the Bureau of Land Management in the 70s to use for operating, quote, a correctional institution and related facilities, end quote. My amendment would direct BLM to convey these 480 acres to the state outright at fair market value and free of the existing property use restrictions to enable future development of the Jean Prison site. Both state and county officials, including Governor Joe Lombardo, are supportive of this amendment, emphasizing that the conveyance of this property to the state will provide new opportunities for economic development and bring in new good-paying jobs for Nevadans. I ask my colleagues to support my bipartisan and locally endorsed amendment accordingly, but I'd also like to speak briefly on the underlying bill. Mr. Chairman, the Nevada Lands Bill has had a long and storied history both here in Washington and back in my state. First, these bills typically require years of collaboration and coalition building within Nevada itself, getting stakeholders ranging from home builders to wilderness advocates on board. Then it's up to those of us in the Nevada delegation to make the case to our colleagues from everywhere else in the country as to why they should help us pass a bill centered on the kinds of parochial lands issues, and for most of their districts would be debated and decided almost entirely at a local level. No one at any level representing any point of view would ever accuse a Nevada Lands Bill of being perfect. But Congress shouldn't be in the business of making perfect the enemy of the good. When he introduced the Northern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act, Congressman Amodei appropriately emphasized, in Nevada, everybody recognizes the importance of striking a right balance between our state's development and conservation needs. However, by proposing to strip every single piece of conservation out of a bill with the word, or every piece of conservation out of the bill with conservation in the title, this ANS threatens to upend that balance, one which Nevada Lands Bill have historically achieved to ensure both broad support and long-term workability. So I want to be clear, I commend my colleague from Nevada for his original intent in crafting H.R. 3173, but I'm sad to say I stand firmly opposed to the committee and authored ANS, which would substitute Nevada realism with ideologically driven Washington extremism. I offer my amendment this morning in good faith and partnership within the context of ongoing bipartisan, bicameral conversations about finding a mutually agreeable way forward for this and other Nevada Lands Bill in the 118th Congress, including Senator Cortez Masto's Southern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act, which passed out of the Senate ENR committee yesterday. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the committee's consideration of my amendment, and I do look forward to continuing to work with you and others on getting legislation imported into Nevada's across the finish line. And with that, I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? I recognize myself, and I support the amendment offered by Representative Lee to facilitate a land conveyance to the state of Nevada for economic development purposes, and I want to commend her on her work with the committee and with Representative Amodei to get the bill to the condition that it's in today. The state of Nevada currently manages the land which formerly housed a prison, but the state no longer needs the prison, which has fallen into disrepair. But due to a reversionary interest clause, the state is limited in how it can use the 480 acres the prison sits upon. Representative Lee's amendment simply conveys the land to the state at fair market value and removes the reversionary interest clause, thus allowing the state and local officials to manage and develop the land in the best interest of the local community. The amendment is in line with the rest of the bill and provides economic development opportunities for the state of Nevada and Clark County. It's no secret, again, that the lack of available land in Nevada for development is restricting economic growth and stunning job creation. The land is strategically positioned to spur economic development and create jobs. It sits by an interstate, rail lines, and a future airport. As was mentioned, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo and Clark County Manager Kevin Schiller provided letters of support for this provision. They both note the economic impact per year during the construction and development phase will be over $340 million and will support more than 8,000 jobs. Additionally, this language has been shared with the Bureau of Land Management, and their feedback and technical assistance have been incorporated. By supporting the inclusion of the Gene Prison transfer, we are supporting local stakeholders in economic development and reducing the burden on the federal government. Again, I want to thank the gentlelady from Nevada for her attention to this matter, for the effort she made to get here today to present her amendment, and also understand that Representative Amodei appreciates your efforts and supports the amendment. I urge my colleagues to support the Lee Amendment and the underlying A&S, and I yield back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? If there's no further discussion on the amendment, the question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Nevada, Ms. Lee, designated Lee 87. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. No additional amendments to the A&S to H.R. 3173 have been filed. Are there any further amendments? Hearing none, the question is on the amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended, offered by myself, designated Westerman A&S 02. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended is adopted. I move that the Committee on Natural Resources favorably report H.R. 3173 as amended to the House. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the bill as amended is favorably ordered or favorably reported. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.